This is Movie and a Beer, a podcast based in Portland, Oregon, where you can share in our discussion about movies and what beers go best with them. From classic cinema to the latest blockbuster, we all can use a little help figuring out what beers to enjoy in the theater or at home. So listen in and explore with us the vast world of ales and lagers to pair up with your movie experience. Hello and welcome to Movie and a Beer. My name is Dan Kopersky, and today we have with us three special guests. We have
Blake, expert.
Otto, the geek at editing.
The geek at editing. That's nice. And I'm Randall.
On this holiday weekend episode of Movie and a Beer, we enjoyed a wonderful classic Japanese animated film from 2001 titled Spirited Away. We were also joined, as you heard, from our youth correspondent Otto, and I believe this was your first film that you've seen from Studio Ghibli or from Hayao Miyazaki. I can never pronounce Japanese.
I've heard of Miyazaki.
Miyazaki, yeah. So, real traditional Japanese animated style. It has a lot of interesting aspects to it. The storylines are a little slow to start, but then they pick up in the end. Just visuals are amazing.
Oh my god,
they're so beautiful.
The sound design was oof.
If you have never seen Spirited Away or Howl's Moving Castle or Kiki's Delivery Service or Totoro My Friend, or he's got about 20 films or so that he's done, or at least Studio Ghibli's done, and they typically reuse the same figures and characters over and over and over with different names and different stories, but they use the same sort of animated figures. So lots of interesting things to talk about the film. During this episode, we brought in 3 Japanese beers. We have 2 from a smaller brewery and then 1 nationally produced beer. We have a Umami IPA, a Yuzu Salt Ale, which is really interesting. We just opened that one to try it. And then those are from Yoho Brewing Company. And then we have a Kirin Ichiban that we started off with. So,
well, yeah, I almost forgot about the Ichiban.
Yeah, it was not too terribly awesome, but good enough, I would say.
I think it probably would have been better. A little spoiler alert for later in the episode. I think it would have fit a different movie.
Yeah.
Than Ichiban.
Yeah.
Godzilla.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
We talked about doing a Godzilla film, but we chose not to do that. But okay.
It'll be too boring for me.
Yeah, so Spirited Away. The film follows a 10-year-old girl named Chihiro, who is later then known as Sen when she signs her contract. She and her family are moving to a new town in Japan. They take a wrong turn and they end up in this sort of what they called an abandoned
theme park,
which it kind of looks like. And then they realize once they've eaten the food and it gets dark, it's not. There's a river you cross, and when you cross the river, what happens?
We see a whole bunch of like ghosts.
Yeah, you go to the spirit world. That's why it's called Spirited Away.
Oh, now I get it.
After all of those years.
Yeah. So I've seen the film a few times, I believe.
I've seen it a couple times.
I've only seen it. This is my second time, and the last time I saw it was in theaters almost 20 years ago.
Nice.
Wow.
This was your first time, right, Otto?
Yeah. Wait, I think you saw 19.
I was 21 almost. No, I guess so. Yeah, so 19 years ago.
That's a long time ago. I think the storyline holds up really well. There's a lot of interest in traditional Japanese culture, history. The different religions are represented pretty well. There's a lot of, I guess you would say, shrine and spirit information and lore that is presented, which if you don't know much about Japanese history and culture and how they think about spirits, and everything has a spirit.
It's first time I watched it, I was really confused by everything because I wasn't familiar with much of that culture. And after doing some research, I had a lot of light bulbs going off. Like, oh, that's too cool. That means this. Oh, and then they had that thing. Nice. But you can still appreciate just for the visuals. I've always loved just classic hand-drawn animation.
So the hand-drawn, every cell is hand-drawn. They have a team of animators that work on it. It usually takes over a year to make a film. And that's them working 24/7. Well, not 24/7. They put in a lot of time drawing frame by frame. And this is traditional animated, old school anime. So you have like a 2D backdrop, and then you have the 2D characters on top of it that are moving around. So you have these beautiful watercolors, beautiful scenery. We have our youth representative. What did you think of the film, Mr. Otto?
I think it was good. Out of a 1% out of a 100 Rotten Tomato, I give it a 65.
65 is
Rotten
pretty
Tomato.
Yeah.
good. I give it like a solid 80. I could watch that again like in maybe a couple years and still appreciate it. It's just, I can't believe the animation. It's so good.
It's really good. So why would you give it that score?
I think,
What could have they done better?
just the story.
You didn't like the story?
Yeah, the story. I didn't really get the story.
I think it's kind of it's a challenging story to understand because I think it's culturally like really different than most of the stories we watch, especially on Disney Plus or those other streaming services.
Yeah. I mean, the animation has obviously progressed, and they moved to more of a 3D style, and everything is computer generated versus hand done. There's a lot of, I don't know, I guess you'd say pushback against the 3D animated styles, and children, they see the old, like, even Mickey Mouse.
Oh yeah.
The old time Mickey Mouse and before Bugs Bunny and even that era where we're still using a solid, background with the 2D figures animated.
The cell animation.
Yeah.
Especially big for Hanna-Barbera, partly because it was really cheap.
Yeah.
And animation can get really expensive if you're not careful.
Additional thoughts, Mr. Otto?
About the animating with the drawing thing, I just always wondered how, like for like the old 2000 movies, I always, for like when they had the draw, I wonder how hard it was to make the backgrounds perfect.
It took a long time. That's why it took them over a year to make one film, and that's because they had so you had your background, and they reused the same background. If you saw, the backgrounds were really, really long, so they could pan across, like when you're looking at the inside of the bathhouse, or if you saw like outside, where it's just background scenery is this beautiful sky with clouds. You'll see some of the clouds move, but that's still part of like the permanent backdrop, so to speak. It's like that's not the characters that you're supposed to pay attention to. That's just kind of the setting.
I think what they call that when they're drawing those animations and cropping in on parts of it and then panning across the stills, they call that field cropping.
Oh.
Yeah, because they crop in on a part of it like a field and just pan around. It makes a lot of sense. I could see why they would do it. But yeah, it's an incredible film, beautiful film. Yeah, I would give it 80. The story is a little bit hard to follow sometimes, a little bit slower. It's 2 hours and 4 minutes.
It is. It's a long film for kids.
Long, yeah.
I think for young adults being 10 to 12 to 15 year age range would be able to sit and appreciate it a little bit more than, say, our younger audience participant. But yes.
Mrs. Doubtfire is like 2 hours and something, and it just seems like 1 hour, but that movie seems like 4 hours and 2 minutes.
Robin Williams is just so funny.
Yeah.
He makes everything go by.
The purpose of that film is to keep you really paying a lot of attention to the screen and listening to the acting and the jokes, and it's a joke-driven film. This is not. This was traditional storytelling. So using your theory, though, and using your logic, then every book would just be 10 pages long, right?
That sounds like heaven.
Is that what you're saying? You'd rather have every book be 10 pages long, or really long and tell a full story?
I can read like a book that's like 100 and something. Just that would seem like a 1 hour, 1 hour 44.
Well, that's about right. They say screenplays are about 120 pages for 2 hours. So but I get it. Yeah, it was a little slow, but.
I was saying this before we recorded. It's a perfect lazy Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Especially if you get some food takeout and bring home and just kind of nosh a little bit, put this on.
I ate some teriyaki that I made earlier today. Leftovers.
That was a good call.
It was really good.
Oh, Spirited Away. Now I get it.
All right, let's talk about what we drank.
Okay, so Mr. Otto, you had a root beer again this time around. Is that what you had? What did you think of that?
Yeah, it tastes good.
You like root beer?
Yeah, it tastes a little sour but a lot more sweeter than I thought it would be.
Interesting.
What was it? It was the Henry Weinhard's root beer, I think.
You had
Oh,
that
the
one before.
best.
I think you had that with the last
It's a
episode.
classic. It's hard to beat. We went down to the Plaid Pantry and tried to find something else, but all they had was the what was the A&W or that. I'm like, I think we'll go Henry Weinhard's. Yeah,
Yeah, kind of rough.
The American adjunct of the root beer world.
exactly.
For the next episode that I'm gonna be in, it's not gonna be that one. And
We'll find a new root beer. We'll have to have maybe the viewers can send us their favorite root beer.
Yeah. Besides the
Or the
Henry
listeners, I
something,
should say. Yeah.
it's not the Henry.
So if
Ford
you're
one.
listening, send us your root beer recommendations.
Yes.
And
I
we're
know we
gonna-
have at least 10 listeners, so hopefully one of them will hit us up on Facebook or
There
send
we
us an
go.
email with a recommendation. So, yes, all of our friends and family that are listeners, thank you for listening.
Whoever has the most
You're welcome.
same root beer things, we're gonna do it. Only if it's like good.
Good root beer. Well, we'll taste test them before we try them
yeah.
because
Maybe
I know
a
there's
vote.
some bad ones out there. I've had some pretty bad ones.
I've never been a huge root beer fan, so I wouldn't. I don't have the palate to really make that kind of call.
Well,
Maybe
there's-
next time I can have
There's a difference
soda.
between sarsaparilla and root beer, and people like to call it all the same thing, but there is a difference.
Sioux City sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Okay, so now that we've covered the root beer, we'll briefly now talk about these 3 beers that we did. The first one, the 2 that we had in cans were from the Yoho Brewing Company out of Nagano, Japan. We got a couple of 4-packs that were purchased from a local package shop called 1856, and a big shout out to our friends at 1856 for having awesome beer. You can find these supposedly at most larger Asian markets such as Uwijimaya or whatever you have in your neighborhood. These were imported through Seattle. They were both really interesting. The third one that we had was a Kirin Ichiban. Well, actually, we had that one first. We weren't sure how much the flavor profiles on these 2 canned beers were going to be, so we started with the lighter, traditional American lager style, 100% malt on it. But it's interesting because they've always traditionally used rice or some other kind of adjunct. So if they are doing it 100% as a premium malt,
Wait, remind me what adjunct means again?
so that's going to be corn or rice or some other source than grain.
Okay.
Wheat would still be considered a grain, but like rice and corn and those types of things, or potato or whatever starch you can get,
Okay.
that would be considered an adjunct.
What's
lager.
the adjunct lager here in the States? What's the closest thing?
Rice and corn? So any American adjunct lager is going to be like PBR or Coors
Okay.
Light, Bud Light, Miller,
America's beers.
any Pilsner, old style, Miller Genuine Draft.
Old style.
Well, they tend not to have a lot of flavor profile. The hops they use are pretty narrow. Ichiban, the Kirin is really actually a decent beer. I've had it a lot with sushi. It pairs well with seafood and fish. So
I think as far as like films would go, those like early to mid '90s Dragon Ball Z movies, I think would be a better match.
Yeah.
Visual substance, a little less story to sink your teeth into.
yeah, I'd agree.
I love Tree of Might, but
Yeah.
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah. So the 2 that we had from the Nagano brewery, Yoho Brewing, the first one that we did was, now it has a really, really long Japanese name I'm not going to try to pronounce, but the short name is the Sari Session Yuzu Salt Ale, which is, as I read up online, based on a Leipzig Gosa style. So Gosa tends to be more sour. They use a lot of both fruit juice and peel and things like that within the beer.
Which is right up my alley.
So it's a sour beer, but not funky. It's not yeasty funky. It's just fruit sour. So it's got a lot of lactic acid in it versus Brettanomyces or some other sort of acid that's going to be, or yeast that's going to provide you with a funk that's not necessarily appropriate for most profiles.
Right.
It did have, I think we all really liked it because it was really light. It had some good lemon citrus on the front, which is yuzu lemon.
Yeah.
You could taste the lemon. The salt was really faint on the back. So this was kind of just a sour beer without being more Gosa than I've had before. Because usually Gosa in America can be really strong with the fruit. And this one was really light with the fruit.
I liked it.
Yeah, it was a lot more like gentle on the flavor. I mean, we're going to talk about this other one, but I think of the three, in my humble opinion, the Yuzu Goza was, I think, the most in line with Spirited Away.
I was able to drink one can in an hour instead of having to slam it because while it warmed up, you got more of the lemon. So the salt fell off even more. They weren't terribly cold when we poured them. It turned almost more on like a lemonade radler kind of approach. So it's not sweet, but it has a little tartness, and it's just a really nice beer.
I guess I can see that. I didn't really get a radler feel from it, but I could see it going that way. I was also just so wrapped up in the film, I don't think.
So good.
All right, so the third and final beer, which we just cracked open to do with the recording, is called Sari Umami IPA. And this one is made with dried bonito flakes. The can has a bunch of writing on it, a really beautiful, like samurai traditional art.
It's a great looking can.
It's a beautiful
really
can.
is.
And the whole thing it says, "I'm sorry, I didn't ask you what you like."
Oh.
So it is. They brewed a truly, in quotes, Japanese beer that they wanted to drink without being bound to the commercial beer styles and standard recipes, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate that Japanese brewers are taking the effort. It says that they do have some savory notes from the bonito flakes, but I don't taste any fish. I get no fish out of it. It does have a medium body, and then the acidity lingers on the back, and maybe that's where those proteins are hanging out a little bit. So you get that it's going to linger a while. It's going to be bitter beer face a little bit. It's not super strong, but I would say this is also a really nice beer. I don't think it would go very well with Spirited Away.
This would probably go better with like a
Godzilla movie or something.
Maybe Godzilla, something. I don't know. This feels like it has more personality and more of a body to
Maybe
it.
IP Man.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, action film. This is more of an action
That's
film.
a good call.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say the other one, the Gosa, the Yuzu Saltail, really went really well with the slow story and the intensity of the emotion and really just what you felt with the film. I think it was a really good pairing. I think that was the winner.
I think, as far as pairing, I agree with the Yuzu being the best. So if you're going to watch Spirited Away, the Yuzu, super long name beer, but we'll have it on the website, would be the best bet. Although of the three of these, I think this one's my favorite. I'm sipping this, the one we have now, our Umami IPA, and I'm like, ooh, I like this.
It's tasty, but yeah.
I like all of them, but this is my favorite of the beers.
Yeah, I really like this IPA as well, but I would agree. All three of them have a similar color profile, like little straw, beautiful light yellow.
Oh yeah.
Slight haze on this one. Not sure where that's coming from. Not totally crystal clear, little haze. All of them had good carbonation retention. A head lingered on at least the first two, and then this one the head dropped out really fast. But I think they all had really good flavor profiles. Like I said, the Ichiban good. The Kirin's really good with food because it doesn't have a lot of flavor to it.
Yeah.
So it's good to as a quencher.
So if you're going to be eating a DVD of Spirited Away. Oh, now I get it. Spirited Away. Funny. Well, threes, boys.
So, Otto, any thoughts on the root beer or beers or the film before we wrap this up?
About the film, out of all the genres, I call it a drama action sad.
Drama, action, sad.
Drama, action, sad. Yeah, you had all the feelings in this film. You really did. There's a little action, a little suspense,
some drama, and
a lot of drama.
It's kind of a mystery as well because you don't know. She doesn't know anything when she gets there to the land of the spirits, and then she has to learn as she goes. But she's a brave young girl. She learns very quickly and learns to take responsibility. And that's why I said, if you watch at the beginning, she's scared to even go down a staircase that's outside. Well, I would be scared too because there was no handrail and you're 30 stories up.
Yeah.
But then at the end, she's just running across stuff and she's like, I'll take on anything. She's like, nothing scares me because nothing can hurt me. She's like, I am in charge of everything of my own life. So I think for young girls in Japan, very empowering for them because they don't necessarily have role models like that aren't just crybaby, submissive, or spoiled, rotten. That's what they say at the beginning of the film. You're such a spoiled little rotten crybaby. You've never worked a day in your life, and she proves them wrong. She saves the bathhouse numerous times. She does amazing things with the spirits she interacts with.
Yeah, she's the lead on the, what was it, the stink spirit, smell spirit?
The stink spirit.
That turned out to be, you'll have to watch to find out, I guess.
Yes. But yeah, so any last thoughts? We had 3 really good beers. I think we all recommend if you can get a Gosa or something that has a little sourness to it.
Yeah.
We have root beer and
Maybe next time I can have a soda.
Whoa, branching out.
Branching out.
Maybe
All right.
moving to beer.
What about a ginger beer?
Oh, we have ginger ale. We have
Ginger beer.
That's too different. I quit. I won't compromise.
Okay, maybe a Coke? No. Pepsi.
But you can get those anywhere. You want
Yeah,
All I
something
want is
special?
Pepsi.
Special. We gotta get
All I
some
want is
special.
If
Pepsi.
we're doing
Oh,
ginger
it's
beer,
Pepsi?
I will try
Oh, come
ginger
on.
beer with
Oh, it
Otto.
was a Pepsi.
Yeah, I was doing that Back to the Future reference.
Not happening. Not
You
happening.
know where I
Dr.
got that
Pepper.
from? It's an old song.
How dare you?
From an old song called Institutionalized.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
Monster.
Anyway, so I want to thank everyone for listening. We've had a really wonderful afternoon on this holiday weekend. Thank you for listening. Go check out any of the Studio Ghibli movies. They're I'm
Yes.
sure they're on all the streaming services, or you can rent them or download them at some cost. Very awesome films. If you are a Disney fan and you've never seen traditional anime from Japan, start here. Start with one of these Studio Ghibli films. Don't jump into the crazy 3D anime stuff that's out now, because it's not, the writing's kind of thin on some of them. There's a few like the Pokemon anime. The Saturday cartoon ones are okay, but
Yeah.
these are films. These are art films that are meant to be watched, and not short attention span, 30 minutes and I'm done kind of thing. So,
Nope.
all right. So 3 thumbs up on all the beers.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
we again
Yeah.
find a really nice sour.
1 thumbs up on the root beer.
Thumb up on the root beer. So my name's Dan Kapersky, and I want to thank you all for listening. And we have a farewell
Otto?
message from Otto
And Blake is here also.
and Blake
And Randall.
and Randall. So thanks for listening, and as always, drink responsibly. Hydrate or dihydrate is our
Stay safe.
slogan. Stay safe.
Wash your hands.
Wash your hands,
Don't-
because we are in the
6 feet away.
the COVID age right now. We do have we're social distancing and doing the right thing during this episode. So all of the opinions expressed during the taping of this podcast are those of the hosts. So thank you all for listening, and take care. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Thanks for listening. This has been Movie and a Beer. Stay tuned for future episodes and features to be added to our website and podcast. And please remember to drink responsibly and hydrate, hydrate, hydrate.